The plan lawmakers passed to ban THC products faces intense opposition.
Old people, veterans, sick people, regular people who need help for sleep are all going to become criminals.
The lieutenant governor mounts his own campaign to back the ban.
This is to save an entire generation of being hooked on drugs. And I need for y'all to take this story seriously.
We look at what's at stake with the ban now in the hands of the governor. Plans to shore up the state's water supply will soon be in the hands of voters.
If Texas doesn't have enough water, we're looking at a multi-billion-dollar hit to the state's economy.
What experts say the plan does and does not do to address long-term water needs in Texas. Legislation to prevent tragedies like this failed to pass at the Capitol. Our investigators examine the lobbying effort that worked to block the bill.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Lawmakers advanced the bill to ban consumable products with hemp-derived THC. Now it's up to Governor Greg Abbott to decide whether the bill becomes law. As opponents push for a veto, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick made a high-profile call to support the ban. On Tuesday, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick called a news conference saying he'd provide snacks and drinks, but he said they weren't meant to consume.
So this is everything you can buy at a smoke shop and a vape shop that will either cause potentially paranoia, schizophrenia, tremendous health issues for you.
The lieutenant governor taking aim at the media, saying Texans need to see more reporting on the dangers of THC.
The young man who was 22, who stepped in front of a train after he ate some of this junk, he wasn't a kid, he was an adult.
Patrick held up a bag of THC cereal bites before tossing it in the direction of reporters.
What are you, crazy? You want to go home and eat a bag of this tonight? See if you're here tomorrow?
Austin-based consumable hemp company Hometown Hero makes the snacks that Patrick singled out. They pushed back on his claims that people don't know what's in their products.
Flip it around and look at the ingredients, QR code, look at the test results. It's all there.
Company leaders say a THC ban will hurt Texans who use products like theirs.
Old people, veterans, sick people, regular people who need help for sleep are all going to become criminals.
Patrick said those who need THC for medical use will get it in a controlled way. He touted legislation to expand a TCUP, the Texas Compassionate Use Program. It would raise the amount of licensed providers and establish satellite locations to reach more Texans.
It will be the largest medical cannabis program, regulated medical cannabis program in the country, and probably the most well-designed.
Patrick expressed confidence that Governor Abbott would sign Senate Bill 3 into law.
I speak with the governor every day.
About this?
Look, I'm not going to speak for the governor, okay? He will do what he's going to do.
We reached out to the governor's office. They sent a response saying, quote, Governor Abbott will thoughtfully review any legislation sent to his desk. We want to give a little more context. Our team got perspective from two former state lawmakers. Dennis Bonnen is a former House Speaker who represented Southeast Texas, and Mark Strama served as a Democratic representative for the Austin area. They looked at the larger stakes highlighted by the Lieutenant Governor's news conference.
Is it interesting that one of the best communicators we've ever seen in Texas politics drove his message? This is what Dan Patrick's really good at doing. It's a great move Republicans like to make. It's the press that didn't get it right. The press script, who I actually saw really coming hard at the lieutenant governor on the ban of hemp, was more social media and conservative voices in social media and veterans and those type folks. I mean, you know, no disrespect, I hope it doesn't come off that way, but to the media, I didn't see y'all as a big part of that. I saw a lot of social media influence from conservative voices, veterans voices. Those type voices are who I think put the lieutenant governor back on his heels.
Well, where this gets interesting is on that question. This is the most unpopular bill the legislature has passed. Vouchers is unpopular with Democratic partisans. The THC issue is banning THC is unpopular across the board. I think the governor's got to decide, going into a election year, running for re-election presumably, does he want to sign a bill that takes away a right people in Texas have grown attached to, when he may be facing the most adverse political climate he's ever had to run in? I mean, look, I've never been one to be overly optimistic about Democrats' chances in this state during the time I've been in politics. We haven't won anything. But you're looking at a very unpopular president in an off year with potentially a pretty bad economy if the president has his way, and passing a very unpopular bill like THC, and a bill that didn't have any real support among the grassroots, like the voucher bill.
So
It's a tough record to run on.
I disagree, but in fairness to Governor Abbott, I'll tell you what he's going to do. He's going to do what Governor Abbott always does that I don't know if enough people understand. He's a lawyer, he was a judge, a Supreme Court judge, he was Attorney General. He's going to do what he does every session when it ends. He is going to study these issues. I think that teacup bill is one he's going to look seriously hard at when it gets to his desk. And what do those two bills together create in the environment for Texans who have pain and need? Greg Abbott is not a surface level governor. He dives into the issues. He'll understand these things.
Governor Abbott has until June 22nd to decide whether to sign the legislation, veto it, or let it go into effect without his signature. Texas lawmakers pour billions of dollars into projects to shore up the state's water supply, but some experts say it might not be enough to meet our long-term water needs.
We just need more people who are specialized in this work, and creating an incentive program makes total sense.
A bill to improve the way Texas investigates death failed to pass at the Capitol, but even though it's not becoming law, it's still making an impact. Texas lawmakers made a major move to bolster our state's water infrastructure. Senate Bill 7 could pour $1 billion a year for the next 20 years into projects to shore up the state's water supply. Still, some experts and advocates say more needs to be done to address long-term water shortages in Texas. For Insight, we're joined now by Jeremy Mazur with Texas 2036. He's the Director of Infrastructure and Natural Resources Policy. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me back, Josh.
So Texas voters still need to approve this plan in a constitutional amendment election. What do Texans need to know about the plan? What will it actually do?
What this plan does, and it's in House Joint Resolution 7, it proposes to dedicate $1 billion in sales tax revenues towards the Texas Water Fund over the next 20 years. And this $1 billion per year, it'll amount to like $20 billion over 20 years, can be used for a wide variety of water infrastructure projects, such as fixing aging, deteriorating systems or expanding our water supply for our drought-prone state.
So supporters of the legislation cited a report by Texas 2036 that looked into the impact of water shortages. What are the key findings of that report?
What we find is that if Texas doesn't have enough water, or if we continue to suffer from the problems associated with aging, deteriorating drinking water and wastewater systems, we're looking at a multi-billion-dollar hit to the state's economy. We estimate at Texas 2036 by as soon as 2050, we're looking at $165 billion per year in lost GDP and economic damages due to having insufficient water infrastructure.
Your report looked closer at how much funding it would take to fully address the state's water shortfall. Does this legislation do enough, you think?
The legislature has done a fantastic job in the 2025 session in addressing the state's water infrastructure challenges. They've done two things here. The first, as we've talked about, is set up this dedicated funding stream for 20 years to address our water infrastructure needs. But the second thing is that the legislature is putting up a $2.5 billion down payment towards our Texas water funds. And so the legislature will be making money available effective September 1st of this year to go out into the field and help us work towards fixing our water infrastructure problems.
So the legislature has taken the first step, but now it's going to go to voters. What's the outlook there?
Yeah, that's the thing here. It's a House Joint Resolution. It proposes to amend the Texas Constitution, and Texas voters will have a say this November. What we find at Texas 2036 is that water, in political terms, is a winner. When we had Proposition 6 in 2023 that proposed to create the Texas Water Fund, 77% of voters supported that. Our polling shows that there are strong majorities between both Republicans and Democrats that are overwhelmingly supportive of state investment in water infrastructure. So we're optimistic of what this proposition will be, what the outcome of this proposition will be in November.
All right, Jeremy Mazur with Texas 2036. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
The time for consideration of Senate bills on second reading on the supplemental daily House calendar has done expired.
Legislation to modernize the way Texas investigates death stalled at the Capitol, but find out how it's still making an impact even without becoming law. Plans to prevent vehicle crashes into medical facilities failed to pass this session. Our investigators examined the lobbying effort that worked to block the bill. An update now to our Hanging on Backbone Creek investigation. Many bills progressing for months could not meet last week's legislative deadlines and won't see the governor's desk. That includes one sparked by our team's reporting that would have modernized the way Texas investigates death, but it's still making an impact even without becoming a law. For a system that dates back 2 centuries in Texas, the possibility of change all came down to mere minutes on the House floor.
Senate Bill presented by Senator Schwartz grants law enforcement officers discretion to tow vehicles. Move passage.
Question occurs on pass third reading. Record vote. Clerk of the bill. Have all members voted? 82 ayes, 16 nays, pass third reading.
Rushed words, a backlogged bill calendar, and tension before midnight.
Mr. Landgraf.
Better Sapsers, move passage.
Record vote. Clerk of the bill.
As the end of a long legislative session loomed, lawmakers pushed what policies they could to the final step, amid protest and points of order.
On behalf of the
Mr.
great
Speaker.
and the record-breaking Senator
Mr. Speaker.
Zaffirini, I move passage of Senate Bill 66.
Gentlemen, yield.
No. Move passage on behalf of Senator Zaffirini.
Any pause meant some bills would die, and dozens did.
101 ayes, 29 nays, passes. There's Howard.
Move passage.
Question.
And in a final moment perhaps fitting for this topic,
Chair lays out second reading, 618.
Mr. Speaker,
Number 618 by Sparks.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
Mr.
Dutton,
Speaker.
for what purpose?
I have a message from the legislative Grim Reaper.
Admit the Grim Reaper.
death prevailed, delivering a deadline for Senate Bill 1370.
The time for consideration of Senate bills on second reading on the supplemental daily House calendar has done expired.
Mr. Dutton, your point of order is well taken and sustained.
SB 1370 would have modernized the state's death investigation system, expanding the use of medical examiners and paving the way for more counties to tap their expertise sooner.
So it's always a balance between protecting the needs of the taxpayer while at the same time doing the right thing by our people.
The bill was filed after our investigation revealed all but 14 of Texas's 254 counties don't have medical examiners, instead relying on elected justices of the peace to conduct inquests into murders, suicides, and other unattended or unexplained deaths without medical or forensic training, a system some experts say is outdated.
Senate Bill 1370.
Despite the bill's outcome, its exposure brought awareness that could bring it up again next session, and its House sponsor vowed to soon study how Texas can attract more physicians to take on these roles.
I think that we should have an interim charge to look at this issue, to bring more medical examiners to the state. We just need more people who are specialized in this work, and creating an incentive program makes total sense.
And that's something you would take on?
Yeah, for sure.
Our year-and-a-half investigation also led to a soon-to-be-established medical examiner office in one of the state's fastest-growing areas, Williamson County.
This is the funeral notice.
And a development in a 60-year-old mystery in Marble Falls.
A tragic and unsolved murder listed as a suicide. No one really ever believed that it was a suicide.
Loved ones still think about 13-year-old Danon Lewis and the way a justice of the peace in 1965 said she died, an accidental hanging with a jump rope in a shed behind her family's home. For them, the bill was something that helped honor her memory.
From my part of the family, we appreciate your efforts and what you have uncovered and what you have done. That's awesome. Thank you.
Our reporting also led to a change on Danon's death certificate, after we brought the story and concerns surrounding the system to the JP who held the same seat today. If we sent you this death certificate and all of the other research that we've been able to pull together, would you take a look at it?
Oh, I certainly would. I would be glad to.
I could certainly do that.
Now listed as could not be determined, it means Danon didn't do this to herself, and serves as a stark reminder of what can happen when the system goes unchecked. Something we'll continue following as lawmakers look to the future. We've asked for comment from the players on the outcome of this bill, and we will update this story online. Find this story in the Related Items section of our special landing page dedicated to this project. Just look for the link in this week's State of Texas story on this station's website. Efforts to prevent disasters like this on a statewide level failed to advance at the Capitol. What our investigators learned about what happened behind the scenes that kept the bill from moving forward. The state senator intends to refile a hospital security bill next session. It's legislation sparked by our reporting and our Preventing Disaster investigation. The promise comes despite intense industry lobbying against the safety measure. Investigator Matt Grant takes a closer look.
Following this deadly crash inside St. David's North Austin Medical Center, the Bernard family had one goal.
Then no one else will have to suffer like we do.
That plea led to a more than year-long investigation looking into crashes and finding solutions to prevent them. After surveying dozens of hospitals and watching bollard crash tests at Texas A&M's Transportation Institute and learning about the strength of these security barriers, we were asked to share our findings with lawmakers as they considered Senate Bill 660 to require bollards at hospitals statewide.
Without a uniform statewide approach, we found a patchwork system where some hospitals are protected while others remain vulnerable.
Using data from the nonprofit Storefront Safety Council, TxDOT, police, and media reports, we built our own nationwide database of crashes over the past decade at places patients receive care, according to the state's definition of healthcare providers, including doctors, nurses, dentists, and pharmacists, among others. The result? By the start of the session, we'd identified more than 400 crashes since 2014, including more than 100 in Texas. Months later, as we continued to track and collect data, the list of crashes into or at medical-related sites had expanded to more than 580, the majority caused by drivers who were either hurt, intoxicated like at St. David's, or had pressed the wrong foot pedal. Nearly 160 of the crashes were at hospitals, almost half of those impacting the ER entrance area. In all, we identified at least 24 deaths and hundreds of injuries.
Singling out hospital emergency rooms to install bollards would not prevent, based on the statistics we're aware of, the overwhelming majority of these types of accidents because they simply don't occur in hospitals.
The Texas Hospital Association testified against SB 660. Behind the scenes, sources tell us the industry group also lobbied aggressively against the proposal. It passed the Senate, but an amended version stalled in a House committee. In a memo we obtained, the THA criticized us for using other medical centers in our data, not just hospitals, and citing cost, called the Bollard bill an unfunded mandate without evidence-based support.
I would question that. I mean, what is the cost of life safety?
Thomas Eustache is with the McHugh Corporation, the same bollard-making company that allowed us to watch its crash tests last year. He says the cost is usually between $10,000 and $30,000 to secure an ER entrance.
It's really not a difficult or costly fix to the problem. So I'm surprised that there was so much pushback.
Still, the bill's author, Senator Royce West, tells us he plans to refile his bill next year, saying, "I am disappointed, especially after we took so many suggestions from stakeholders on modifying common sense public safety legislation." The Bernard family also reacting, telling us they're disappointed the bill was killed by hospital special interests, but hopeful it will eventually pass, saying if these hospitals won't do it voluntarily, there must be laws to protect all families from this predictable and preventable destruction.
This is not a partisan issue. This is a life safety issue.
And former Austin Council member Mackenzie Kelly, who initiated a citywide ordinance requiring crash-tested bollards at new hospitals following our investigation, said Austin led the way by acting before tragedy struck again, and I firmly believe this idea's time will come at the statewide level, a sentiment echoed by patient advocates.
I have to credit you, Matt, and your team at KXAN for doing the deep dive, for digging into the data. I think you've built the best data set in the country right now. So it definitely informed the debate here in Texas. And I wouldn't be surprised if it informs the debate all around the country as hospitals evaluate how they are protecting folks inside of their emergency rooms.
The chair of the House Public Health Committee, Representative Gary Vandever, gave the bill a hearing but did not bring it up again for a vote, allowing it to die. Both he and the Texas Hospital Association did not respond to our request for comment. We'll post any responses we receive in the State of Texas story on the station's website. At the Capitol, Matt Grant, State of Texas.
The bill was supported by the Texas Nurses Association. St. David's, which is challenging a $1 million lawsuit for not having bollards at the time of the crash we mentioned, declined to comment. The hospital system previously said it installed $500,000 worth of bollards at its Austin area hospitals after the deadly ER crash, but repeatedly refused to say if any are crash rated. Catch up on our complete coverage right now on our website. Just look for the Preventing Disaster button in this week's State of Texas story. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.